Top 8 of that. They had no choice because this is all they know.
It's a new one. It's a new one. It's the same string from earlier. Okay, it just popped up.
And you know the funniest thing?
It's still showing that thing.
They're the ones who made the law that they break.
It's still showing. Oh, there it is. Yeah, it's good. It's good.
All right, y'all. Sorry about that. The second half, we're gonna be going into breaking down critical race theory. Hakula, is that arrow? Check. Can you see if you can go low with it or make it take it off the automatic so you can just blow on fan?
Oh yeah, I did it already.
Okay. Well, see if you can get some fans in there for people. It's kind of hot. So yeah, we're gonna go into critical race theory. This is the end of the Bible Belt right here. I've got a couple of slides on this real quick. Now this right here, give Captain Kahun from Yard a hand. He actually gave me this one right here. I knew nothing about this. This is in Eureka, Arkansas. All right, and this is the title. I think this was in New York Times or something like that. It was inside Eureka Springs, the Bible Belt's LGBTQ oasis. Remember, I told y'all the symptom of the Bible Belt is any kind of curse, any kind of sin you could ever think of. It's going to create that. It's creating a comfortable atmosphere or a city strictly for the LGBTQ. Look at this. They steps. It's rainbow. You go into their little condos and whatnot. They got their flags up. Over in here, this is their whole little city right here. That's their downtown area. All right. So next slide. What I want to show you real quick, this is what a preacher that actually had a church, but he ends up converting the church because he probably had a lack of members. He started accepting the LGBTQ community. So some churches in Eureka disagreed with Lassiter's blanket policy of accepting his LGBTQ parishioners. So that's the pastor right there, Lassiter. The local ministerial alliance banned the church from marching in 2015 Easter parade because it had brought a banner that said, Jesus loves all. So people got offended that the LGBTQ brought a flag and said, Jesus loves all. That's the John 3:16. Supposed to love everybody, ain't it? That's what Christians say. I guess they ain't like it when the trainees sitting up there looking like a man and a woman saying Jesus loves all. Sometimes the small contingent of anti-LGBTQ residents is especially vocal. So you got people in there that was fighting against the LGBTQ. Lassiter said he recalled a past diversity weekend event during which a group of men loudly protest the proceedings. Lassiter started a conversation with one of the men, and the two talk about their military backgrounds, their opposing beliefs, and their humanity. The men never returned to another diversity event, Lassiter said. There had been other flare-ups between conservative Eurekans and their liberal neighbors. In 2015, the town passed an ordinance that banned discrimination based on gender identity or sexual orientation. So you know what's about to happen. For residents and visitors in the area like employment and housing. It was then the broadest law in the entire state. The Arkansas Democratic Gazette reported at the time, but it inspired some spirited disagreement between the residents and sobs of relief when the ordinance was upheld. So meaning that they fought their way into that city. And the law agreed with the LGBTQ. Here you go, right here is going to explain it. However, not even the current movement to roll back LGBTQ rights nationwide has significantly changed Eureka's emphasis on coexistence, residents said. If anything, Taylor said it's only made its queer and trans residents more determined to keep Eureka as safe and welcoming as it is, meaning that even people pushing back against the LGBTQ movement made the transgenders and the queer and the transgender, it made them stick together and want to hold that city for themselves. It gave them more strength for people fighting. because they know eventually the law's gonna hop on their side. All they gotta say is that they don't have rights like a black person or civil rights. You know, they always try to join our side. That's how they use us too. Ethan Avazino said he remains committed to making Waterloo a safe place for LGBTQ people, a need he realized when he came out as trans years ago. When he lived in Texas, he was hyper visible, appearing before state legislators to argue on behalf of trans people and delivering presentations on what it means to be trans. Those efforts were important, he said, but felt impersonal. So this man right here had dealings with politics and dealing with the government anyway, and he's probably the reason why they pushed and had that ordinance upheld for LGBTQ. So now they got a city in Eureka, Arkansas. Bible Belt fed. All right, next slide. This video right here, I wanted you to see because openly gay pastors' journey acceptance in the Bible Belt. This is the product of the Bible Belt. Just like the product was Eureka that we just seen, Eureka, Arkansas. Here's another product what's going on in just about every state in the Bible Belt today. Go ahead and play.
Community can be found in many places, but in the South, church is everything. In fact, the South is by far the most religious region in the country. A recent study indicates that an overwhelming 90% of Southerners believe in God, and over 80% say that religion is an important part of their daily lives. But many churches still reject LGBTQ people, who often have to decide between hiding who they are or being cut off from the biggest source of community they've ever known. But that's not the case in every church. I recently traveled to one of the most devout places in the country, Mississippi. And right there in the capital of Jackson, I found a church with an openly gay pastor whose mission it is to welcome anyone and everyone into their community of faith.
Hi. You go see Pastor Louder. Good to have you with us. Good to meet you. Welcome, Connor.
Thank you for having me in your church today. This is a really beautiful space. How long have you been a minister in the church?
I'm going into my 20th year of ministry.
What's your journey been like as an openly gay minister? Have you always been out in the church?
I'm not. I came out almost
So
11
y'all
years ago.
realize the preacher
And
gay,
that was
he gay too.
the end of a very long personal journey. When I went to seminary, the church at the time had a ban on gay clergy. You could not be ordained if you were openly gay in the Presbyterian church at that point. I got ordained, I got married, I got divorced.
You got married to one.
I got married to a wonderful woman, but our marriage didn't last. Not being out was waking up every morning and living my day dishonestly. See, what the community learned, that man in the cemetery, the world has to change with the gospel. One day, in the middle of the day, it just dawned on me that the only way for me to truly be the person I feel called to be in the church was to be the person I truly feel called to be entirely. Being openly gay and being out in the world, that's the only way for me to wake up in the morning and start telling the truth every day. Jesus reaches into the world and brings compassion and love and healing and wholeness where there was none.
So when you decided to come out, what kind of responses did you get from the church?
It was sort of a 99-to-1 ratio of people who were tremendously welcoming and embracing. Friends, my family, my colleagues, all, without exception, were wonderfully welcoming to me.
That's incredible. You realize that's like not the experience for most people.
I realized exactly how lucky I am. I really do.
I grew up going to private Christian school. I was in church every day. It was my life. I worked at a a church that was non-denominational but had Southern Baptist roots. I led a team of about 50 volunteers. I too never thought that being out was an option. I sort of suppressed these thoughts, these feelings for so long, just thinking that I'd be able to pray it away.
Yeah.
I told my pastor that I was attracted to men, and I lost my job. And it took me years to be able to walk back into the church. What that experience did for me was made me question everything that I thought I knew to be true about God, about the church, about myself. And so I had to figure out a new way to engage with God. And part of that was leaving the church. Now that life seems so far away.
Sure.
And
not being out was living.
He said he had to find a new way to be accepted in the church or let God accept him. That's the problem. See, with Christians, they like, I don't want to stop sinning or stop what I want to do. The whole thing about really following the laws of God, following the commandments, the laws, the whole thing is being disciplined and realizing that you don't know what you're doing. And just follow what the commandments say. Christianity is based on how you feel. When he told the last church he was part of, he told the pastor that I'm attracted to men. He kicked him out of there. Now, what if every church did that? He actually did what he's supposed to do. But then, look at what the Bible Belt has set up for him. They have a net set up for you where you can do what you want to do. You can be a homosexual, trans, anything. The only thing you got to do is just bring the money in there. Or be a charismatic leader, so then you can do what your oppressor wants you to do, is teach the people what they want you to teach them. Not the Bible. It's a product, man. We looked at the history of it. Here it is in this day and time, right in our face. He said it himself. Go ahead.
For me, that the only way for me to truly be the person I feel called to be in the church was to be the person I truly feel called to be entirely. Being openly gay and being out in the world, that's the only way for me to wake up in the morning and start telling the truth every day. Jesus reaches into the world and brings compassion and love and healing and wholeness where there was none.
Ain't none of that in the Bible, bro. I couldn't help that, man. I'm sitting there listening. Jesus breathes into the world.
Tremendously welcoming and embracing. My friends, my family, my colleagues, all, without exception, were wonderfully welcoming to me.
That's incredible. You realize that's like not the experience of most people.
I realized exactly how lucky I am. I really do.
I grew up going to a private Christian school. I was in church every day. It was my life. I worked at a church that was non-denominational but had Southern Baptist roots. I led a team of about 50 volunteers.
Check this out. He's about to say.
I too never thought that being out was an option. I sort of suppressed these thoughts, these feelings for so long, just thinking that I'd be able to pray it away.
Yeah.
I told my pastor that I was attracted to men, and I lost my job. And it took me years to be able to walk back into the church. What that experience did for me was made me question everything that I thought I knew to be true about God, about the church, about myself. And so I had to figure out a new way to engage with God. And part of that was leaving the church. Now that life seems so far away.
Sure.
And figuring out how to build that community has been a really difficult journey to figure out how to get there.
The world has learned. The world has grown. We are growing into a new people, a new community. Part of your life, your journey coming out is about sharing that part of you. Sometimes it happens like mine did, where I'm surrounded by a community that embraces me. Sometimes it happens like your story, where all of a sudden this bedrock in your life is drawn out from under you. Laying down to folks feeling cut off from what they knew and sort of adrift. What I tell them is build a community. Find a community that honors who you are. Because the one thing God wants out of this is for you to know that you are valued and honored. You're not on this earth to pray away the day any more than you are to pray away the strength or anything else.
What do you think it was about the particular community in which you existed that made them so welcoming that you think other people can learn from?
In this community right here, is not defined by a bunch of people who live and think and act alike. In this church, I've got people who are lifelong, deep political and social conservatives, and I've got young trans people who are coming and sharing their gifts with us. We bear witness to the fact that agreeing with people is not what makes community. Loving people is what makes community. So I think that we are demonstrating in who we are what can be possible in the world. And I think that's just vitally important today.
Wow, that sounds like something I could get behind. Wholeheartedly.
I mean, he said what he said. That man said that's something I can get behind. That's the problem. That's the problem right there. Next slide. Good. No, I can't think so. I didn't catch that part. I would have left that out. Yeah. This right here, Cap. I know you recognize this. We was at camp in Memphis, right? And the brothers, we recognize this statue is in one of the places that Memphis has camp at. Across the street, this is looking at us dead in our face. This is not a small statue, man. This thing is huge. This, Cam, how big you think this is right here?
About 40 feet tall.
Yeah, it's huge. Now this thing is right in front of this church. Something Overcome. Yeah, World Overcomers Outreach Ministries. All right. I just wanted to show you how far Christianity ago that was taught. They call them Bible belters. That was taught about if you want to be a Christian, it ain't about being white. Remember? It's about being a Christian so you can be American.
That's right.
That's what this is.
Yeah, that's right.
That's the whole point. You want to be a Christian? Be an American. Then you'll get your Christianity. Memphis Church Building Christian Statue of Liberty. Memphis, Tennessee, a 72-foot tall replica of the Statue of Liberty erected at Memphis Church is green like the original, but the right arm extended upward for a familiar pose, but instead of a torch, this statue holds a cross. And the famous inscription, give me your tired, your poor, has been replaced by Roman numerals representing the 10 Commandments. The Statue of Liberation to be unveiled at July 4th Independence Day ceremony at the World Overcomers Outreach Ministries Church. Also has a tear running down her face, representing her concern for America. People don't talk about Christ anymore, and on our morals are gone, said church pastor apostle Alton H. Williams. That's a nigga. Alton, that's a nigga. People cannot drive by our statue without thinking about their relationship with God. This $260,000 statue is not a welcome sight for the entire community. Evelyn Douglas 11 said that the lake, it takes the long way home to avoid seeing the big green thing. So this lady don't even like the statue. The Statue of Liberty is a symbol of the United States of America. Let me come over here. The cross represents a replica of a specific religion, Douglas said. I ain't gonna go no further with that. That's the point. The point is, this is what Christianity wants you to do now. It wants you to be a nice American, reach for that American pie in the sky, be a good Christian, and be a good nigga and do what you told. All right, that's why I wanted to end it with that. Now, next slide. Let's go to critical race theory. So that concluded the Bible Belt. Now we're going to go into critical race theory. And with critical race theory, let me help y'all understand, man. Critical race theory is very basic. It came up in a law school in college. It was this brother actually that came up with it, and it was a course that you took in law school. And with this course, you will basically look at the laws of America. And when you looked at these laws of America, you could see the injustice behind them. You could see the unlevel playing field. And this guy noticed that. And when he noticed it, he started like really researching it and doing documentation on it and started saying, man, we need to bring this to the forefront. You go to the next one. So this is critical race theory that we're about to drop. And I'm about to break it down to you because actually the whole term critical race theory came from a sister that worked with the brother. All right. So it was a course that you took in law school, and it was just to make you aware of the laws that were made in America are not for you. They're against you. So then bringing light to that, it got pushed from Donald Trump to where he created an executive order to ban it, which we're going to look at. And also politics got into it. And then it got to the point where public schools wanted to ban it. But then ended up the people that speak and talking about my child don't need to hear this and all that, they end up being hired. They weren't even real parents. They were hired by politicians just to speak against critical race theory. But what you got?
What's it like? They planned to teach it and then they stopped it.
Yes, they wanted to create a program where they did put it in schools, but it wasn't like a certain course. It was just something like you would introduce and show the children. This is what America did, and Esau stopped. Exactly. Esau came against it. And we're going to look at it. I'll just give you a quick synopsis of it. So we're looking at a lesson on critical race theory. The originators of, we go, like we see CRT is the short way of saying critical race theory. So the originators of CRT include Derek Bell, that's the brother I was talking about. Kimberly, I'm not sure if that's a brother. So like Derek Bell, I'm not sure. I know Kimberly Crenshaw is. We got video on her. Cheryl Harris, Richard Delgado, Patricia Williams, Gloria Lasson Billings, Tara Yasso, among others. CRT transcends a black-white racial binary and recognizes that racism has impacted the experiences, check this out, of various people of color, including Latino, that's a misprint with that X, Latino, Native American, your trademark Asian, right? Remember what Commander YAHANNA taught us? That's the trademark Asian right there. That's the model citizen. If you're not white, you're supposed to be like the model citizen Asian. All right? But it's strange. See how they put the Latino and the Native American in there? You see these things, they show you. If you pay attention, people will show you who's really at the bottom. They just put the Asian in there because, hell, the Asian got Asian hate crime. So they respect them for some reason, As a result, different branches, those are different branches. These different branches seek to examine specific experiences of oppression. So that's what critical race theory they found was doing. It's just showing all the different ways that these people have been oppressed. CRT challenges white privilege and exposes deficient informed research that ignores and often omits the scholarship of people of color. CRT began in legal academy in the 1970s and grew in the 1980s and 1990s. So this has been around for a long time. This ain't nothing new. All right, just so you know, for your education. It persists as a field of inquiry. This is not like something that, it's just this program that is being forced into the schools. It's just a field of inquiry. Like they're researching it. It's something that they're bringing up to see, like, hey, let's look at this. It's a theory. All right, that's the whole point of saying theory. In the legal field and in other areas of scholarship, Mary Masudi describes CRT as the work of progressive legal scholars seeking to address the role of racism in the law and the work to eliminate it in other configurations of subordination. All right. Next slide. Get the card for me. Matter of fact, keep time check. All right. I need to know when, like, maybe just use a stopwatch. Let me know when 45 minutes has passed. The person widely credited, here we go right here, with coining the term is Kimberly Williams Crenshaw, a law professor at the UCLA School of Law and Columbia Law School. Like many other academic frameworks, critical race theory has been subject to various counter-arguments over the years. Some critics suggested, for example, that the field sacrificed academic rigor in favor of personal narratives. Others wondered whether its emphasis on systematic problems diminished the agency of individual people. What's they saying in a nutshell? What this is doing is, some critics suggested, for example, that the field sacrificed academic rigor in favor of personal narratives. In other words, y'all just making this up. You just making this up for yourselves. You really don't have any kind of legal or document or anything binding from it. But the thing is, these are lawyers from a law school, exactly. And you too are. And he's right. They know what they talk about. These are lawyers. They study the law, and what they was looking at was the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. They just started looking over it and really dissecting it. The last year, after protests over the police killings of George Floyd, prompted new conversation about structural racism in the United States. President Donald Trump issued a memo to federal agencies that warned against critical race theory, labeling it a divisive, followed by an executive order barring any training that suggested the United States was fundamentally racist. You see that? Y'all gonna ban this because you saying we're racist. Even though we are, you ain't supposed to say it. Especially have a theory about it, and now you're trying to have a little course about it. But they've been doing it since the 70s. Why he just saying something now? It's a political ploy. Something to make him look good in politics. And then you saying it's divisive and it's critical race theory. Why is it such a big deal? Why now? Because that man trying to get it voted. He trying to get elected. All right? Give me that verse. It's perfect. Y'all know this.
It's the book of John, chapter 8 and verse 44. Ye are of your father, the devil, and the lust of your father will you do. He was a murderer from the beginning, and abode not in the truth.
Abode not in the truth. This man's the lion. He's only doing what his forefathers taught, what America taught, what the Bible Belt taught. Now you understand why all these things are connected to each other. The Bible Belt, critical race theory, Southern Baptist Convention, all this stuff, even eugenics, the Negro Project, just naming off the top of my head, all these things are connected because they all systems set up to push people down and leave the power to white supremacy. Look at the word itself. White supremacy means you reign supreme over everything. If you reign supreme over anything showing a little bit of power, you gotta kill it. All right, it's like a weed. But that's it for that scripture, brother. Let's get the next slide. All right, now this video right here, creator of the term critical race theory. This is Kimberly Crenshaw. All right, the sister on the right. Go ahead. You go ahead. Yeah, right now, Crenshaw.
I just wrote down a few of the notes of what people are calling critical race theory: Marxism, racism, bigoted. Let's start with the Marxism. That's their favorite one. They're using that every single time. And I hate to ask dumb questions, so please don't think that I'm dumb. Is critical race theory Marxism?
Salagi.
Like, critical race theory is not so much a thing, it's a way of looking at a thing. It's a way of looking at race. It's a way of looking at why, after so many decades, centuries actually, since the emancipation, we have patterns of inequality that are enduring, they are stubborn. And the point of critical race theory originally was to think and talk about how law contributed to the subordinate status of African Americans, of indigenous people, and of an entire group of people who were coming to our shores from Asia. And the point was, quite frankly, to understand the problem in order to intervene in it, to understand why the greatest hopes for our republic were not being realized, even though these hopes were encoded in law. So critical race theory just inherits the
you heard her bring up
hopes
Asians.
of Frederick Douglass,
Asians is top
Martin
tier.
Luther King, who basically want the law to do for the freed people what the law did for enslavers. And we picked that up in the 70s and 80s after the civil rights movement to say, okay, so now we got this big civil rights movement. We have all these laws in the book, but things really aren't looking as different as they should if we are really the society that we say we.
Yeah, she just said, we started looking at it in the 70s. And during the civil rights movement, we started looking at all the laws and everything. And we started realizing, because, like at first, and when she said that, I was like, damn. So y'all really was just, it was like, man, it's like a pattern. Like this Bible Belt stuff is heavy if you think about it. It's a pattern they go through. How many civil rights leaders have we seen that was not only Christians or preachers, but then they had the same pattern of nonviolent, have to get integrated with your oppressor. You keep doing walks and marches and all this, but you never really even know why you're doing this. It just seems like things are unfair, but you really have not looked in the law and looked deep into what they're doing here. That's why they look at us like we a hate group and all this, because we look deep into the Bible. We break scriptures down. That's why in the Christian church, if you look at how they preach, they'll have a teleprompter, 2 scriptures. He'll cover it for about 10 minutes. The rest of it, he's talking to you like this. He's not even looking at the scripture and breaking it down to you, philosophizing. It's been taught. That's what she just said. Since the 70s, we've been looking at these things because we was doing the civil rights movement, we're doing all these marches. Then we actually started looking at the law and how it's one-sided. That's heavy, man. Because we've been walking blind for a long time. That's why even our people in the world, they don't have the truth, but they know something ain't right. Keep going.
So we put about the task of understanding how law wasn't just the neutral referee. Law wasn't always on our side. In fact, law was less on our side than for on our side. And we wanted to tell these stories in order to do better with the promises that are embedded in the Constitution. That's what's in critical race theory.
So is critical race theory, is there a cake?
Now here's the mess up in what she just said. You're not going to find any justice in the laws ever. Those laws are made for them. That's the part where our people in the world, they have to have the truth. They can't survive off of, that's just like what do you call them, Moors. They think they can use the law against them. I don't have to have my license. I don't have to give you, I don't have to get out there. What are you doing? What is my order? Yeah, because he don't give a damn about what you talking about. The laws is for him and his people. You're not even a second class, third class citizen. You what? You're an animal. So he gonna hurt you and do what he wants. The laws ain't for you. That's where they messing up at. Go ahead.
Through 12 curriculum that right now is being taught. I'm sorry, I know it's a dumb question, but is there a K through 12 curriculum on critical race theory that's being taught in schools around this country?
Well, look, Joy, if it was news to most Americans that critical race theory was in K through 12, it was news to me too. I'm one of the co-authors of
See it? All that Trump crap, all them people doing them little going against the school system and going to no meetings talking about not my son. it was never said that your son. No, that wasn't even the case. The only thing is the reason why they came up with a program and wanted to introduce it to the school is because they wanted children to know their real history. It wasn't so like white supremacy had always used that reverse racism crap. You're being racist. Like how many times we've been at camp, we heard you being racist.
Right.
You know, that's what they do. That's a tactic, you know, like a little war tactic. But they can't possibly think that that this lady doesn't know what she's talking about, and all the lawyers she works with, and that they're lying.
Right.
There's no reason for them to lie. The thing is that it was a theory, and it was something they researched way back in the 70s. And then when they start bringing it up to the forefront, start letting people know, people used it as a political ploy to go against to get votes. That's all it is. That's all it is. Now, here's the crazy part we're going to look at, too. The Southern Baptist Convention went against it hard. But you know what happened? They end up stabbing themselves because some of those black preachers in there left. That's what they ain't telling you.
Okay.
Now, we went to camp. We're going to have that video, too, where the white boy said himself, the preacher, he said, you don't have a voice in the Southern Baptist Convention. You don't have a voice. We give you a voice. That's control right there. All right? Go ahead.
A few books on critical race theory, I think I would know if we were being taught in K through 12. I mean, basically, critical race theory, classic critical race theory is a law school course, and it's really, not taught as widely as I would hope it would. Yeah. But here's the deal. This is not about whether anything called critical race theory is in K through 12. What they're calling critical race theory doesn't exist anyway. Right. It is a backlash effort to reverse the racial reckoning unlike any we've seen in our lifetime. And as you pointed out at the beginning, they can't say, we're for racism. They can't say Derek Chauvin should have killed George Floyd with his hand in his pocket, looking like he was completely without a care in the world. They couldn't say that. So they looked around and found a strange sounding theory that they could put all of the grievances and resentments in and mobilize people around this boogeyman. And if our side can't really understand what's going on, it's going to work. It's worked in the past. It worked to end Reconstruction, and it can work to end this reckoning too.
And a gentleman named Christopher Rufo, who's very vigorously requested to be on the show. We're gonna take him up on it and let him come on this week and invite him on. He literally said, we've successfully frozen their brand, critical race theory, into the public conversation and are steadily driving up negative perceptions. We will eventually turn it toxic as we put all the various cultural insanities under that brand category. To wit, Fox News has mentioned critical race theory nearly 1,300 times in the past 3.5 months. And we've now discovered that a lot of these parents that are showing up at school boards inveighing against their children being taught that they're, racist, turns out they are actually Republican activists, not just regular old parents.
It's surprised there, right?
Yeah, it is.
There, right?
You missed that one? Well, I'm gonna rewind. I know you did. No, I'm a preacher, right? No, I did. I know you missed
nearly 1,300 times in the past 3.5 months. And we've now discovered that a lot of these parents that are showing up at school boards inveighing against their children being taught that they're, racist, turns out they are actually Republican activists, not just regular old parents.
Well, not even parents.
It's surprised there,
right?
It's not surprising at all. So I guess my last question to you would be, what do you worry is sort of the purpose of what they're trying to do? Because this is political. It is about getting out the white voters in 2022. Is there a bigger risk to naming critical race theory as some sort of Marxist plot?
Well, of course. I mean, the biggest risk is that this tried and true framing of anti-racism as racist against white people is going to win again. It won at the end of the Civil War when civil rights were framed as reverse discrimination against white people. It won after Brown versus Board of Education when integration was framed as damaging white children. And it could win now if people don't wake up and have a sense of what's at stake. So yeah, you're going to hear all these stories, cherry pick stories. Turns out a lot of them were not verifiable that the other side is putting out there. You're not going to hear, and you should, what is happening with these bans. You're not going to hear that an essay by Ta-Nehisi Coates was the reason why a school teacher was fired. You're not going to hear about the affinity groups in colleges and universities and the programs, the educational programs that are being canceled. So we need to see materially what this is doing in order to weigh into this. If anyone was mobilized by last year, if anyone is concerned about what they saw on January 6th, then you are on our side with this and you need to get involved.
All right. Next slide. I think that video pretty much spoke for itself. All right. I'm looking at it on time. 30 minutes. Okay, go next slide. Talk about pretty much the same. Oh, this was funny right here. Check this out. White mother from Virginia has said she plans to sue her black son's school in Virginia, claiming he had been influenced by classes on critical race theory and was now having racial issues. Fox News' Jesse Waters spoke to the mother, Melissa Riley, during his show on Monday night. Waters asked how being taught about critical race theory at the Henley Middle School in Crozet, Virginia, had influenced Riley's son and has shifted their relationship. Riley, who told Fox News host her son's father is black and she is white, said that her son was now having issues with race. Now, this was a white woman with a black son and a black father. We didn't have this being taught critical race theory. It's gonna be all out hell in that house. We didn't have any issues before he's in the 8th grade. They introduced this critical program, and now he is having racial issues. She said he is seeing himself just as a black man. What is wrong with that? It scared the hell out of her. That's what's wrong. He is seeing things that don't go his way as racism. Wow. Well, I think we all have felt that feeling before. He is finding safety in numbers. Oh, really? So when he go into a lunchroom and he see Asian table, y'all know how it is in high school or middle school. Asian table, even our Mexican brother table, niggas table, white table. Guess what he was sitting at first? White table, beeline. Now he see a little bit about what America has done to him and his people. When he go in there, guess what he go? Beeline. What the niggas say? I feel that, man. Now you feel the struggle. Go ahead, Cap.
If I could, I just wanted to bring out something on this whole critical race theory. Just so brothers and sisters are clear. No schools ever use the term critical race theory when they're teaching children about the history of America. Critical race theory is a college level course that you only take if you're in law school. Everybody understand? No high school, middle school, elementary school is teaching critical race theory. But white people don't want children being taught about slavery. White people don't want children being taught about Jim Crow laws. White people don't want the children being taught about, you understand, the Civil War and how the South wanted slavery. So they use this term, critical race theory, to cover any history of America. So when we're reading about that whole video, the lady was talking, she's saying these white people are using this term to erase history. They don't want to talk about any history at all. So they'll say, we got to stop this critical race theory. But nobody's even talking about critical race theory. Just so y'all understand, anytime a white person or anybody tries to bring up critical race theory, you don't even have to address it. I don't want to talk about critical race theory. Let's talk about the history of racism and evil that white people have done against all people in this country.
Side right. Say that, Cap. Next slide. Education has divided. Yes. Okay. Critical race theory is an educational issue that has divided conservatives and liberals, as it teaches that racism does not come just from individuals, but also that a country's legal and other systems are inherently racist. That's right. Critical race theory is being taught in American classrooms, and it damages how our children view the world. Waters said. Now you gotta remember, this is Fox News. Okay, so they fixing this up to make it look like that. In his introduction of the segment, that's why he even has this woman on here. Melissa Riley saw the radical curriculum at her 13-year-old son's middle school in Virginia. Her son had never talked about his race or racial issues until the school forced it on him. See how she tried to make it look? It's all this, like Cap was saying, it's like this thing that's been put in the air. Look what they're doing, like, you shouldn't even pay attention to this. You should pay attention to this. All right, so until the school forced it on. Melissa is now suing his school, claiming they brainwashed her son. Waters questioned whether Riley's son would use racism as an excuse if he gets a bad grade or is rejected by a girl at school. And Riley said she believed he would, while laughing. Riley also said that when she asked her son to clean the house, he will refuse, claiming racism. That's some nigga shit. She added the school has completely changed his perspective. They had put him in a box. He is using racism as an excuse because they have told him that is how people see him as a black man, that the world is against him, and he shows it as negative now. It is negative. And the thing you got to understand too is that she's painting a picture here. She's painting a picture that it's wrong for you to speak up against things that are wrong against you because of who you are. You understand? That little boy probably realized that he black. It was probably nowhere serious like this Fox News is trying to say, but he is recognizing that things happen to his people, and he's trying to stand up for it. All right, next slide. Okay. When Waters asked Riley what her son's father, who is African American, thought of his son's behavior in the school's curriculum, she replied, I am a single mom, so I'm teaching him everything. That's the problem right there. That's the problem right there. A black man should be in that house teaching that son how to be a black man. That's right. Kendall Thomas, a law professor at Columbia University and co-editor of Critical Race Theory, the key writings that formed the movement, told Newsweek, CRT maps the nature and workings of institutional racism. That's what it is. CRT challenges us to see the racial injustice in America is not. It has never been just a problem of isolated instances of individual bias and private prejudice, which can solve by enacting colorblind laws and policy, Thomas said. CRT tracks the ways in which the colorblind racism of today's post-civil rights era entrenches racial disparities, discrimination, and disadvantages among Black, Brown, and Native American communities without ever explicitly using the language of race. You see that? Black, Brown, Native American, people know. They know who's on the bottom. I always have to make sure I put a magnifying glass on that. And also, this law can never be colorblind. Not under this rulership right here. The only rulership that will have supremacy and rulership and justice is the rulership of YAHANNA of Christ, all right, when he come back. So the only thing about what they're trying to find with critical race theory, it's like I said, it's a theory and it's something that these lawyers group together to find, but they'll never be able to fit in with the law to make them get treated just like a white man would get treated. That'll never happen. All right. That's the only thing that me personally I have noticed about one of their goals. Like that like I said, that goal is just like the Lord's. Next slide. This is talking more about President Trump's issued an executive order excluding federal contracts in diversity and inclusion training interpreted as containing divisive concepts, race or sex stereotyping, and race or sex scapegoating. So he put this under race scapegoating. Divisive concepts. That's how he was able to come up with a law to put up, but not a law, but an executive order to ban. Go to the next one. Go to the next one. Just going through some of them, just for time's sake. Go to the next one. Next one. Go to the next one. Black voices. Do I want that? That is so damn little. Go to the next one.
It's
Way too small. Yeah, that's what I want. When it comes to education, other states continue to follow Florida's lead as we continue to reinforce parents' rights by focusing on providing their children with world-class education without the fear of indoctrination or exposure to dangerous and divisive concepts in our classroom. This came from the Commissioner of Education, Richard Corcoran, and said in the release. Critical race theory was never meant to be a divisive, and hateful topic. Legal scholar Derek Bell referred to as the godfather of critical race theory, dedicated his life to studying racism as a permanent feature of America. In an interview at his New York University law office, Bell said he seeks a different reaction when explaining his thoughts on race to black groups rather than white groups. It reaffirms that it is not their fault, he said. It is an affirmation of themselves and not a bias for despair. There is something fundamentally backward about white people using their fragility as grounds to abolish a concept beneficial to all marginalized groups. It is especially evil for the oppressor to rob black people of the opportunity to feel recognized after generations of trauma and abuse. That was a real statement that brother said. Next slide. Now, before we start this, basically broke down what critical race theory is. Okay, brother? He's a brother? Good. You sound like a nigga. I knew it. Sound like a running back. I knew it. No, but that's that. I pretty much figured that based on what he was saying. You know what I'm saying? Appreciate that, brother. Now the Southern Baptist Convention. Now this is their history is a lot. So I found a good video. It gives it to you in like 3 minutes. All right, it's real quick. So critical race theory links to this because they went so hard against it. All right, so I want to really bring to light what the hell the Southern Baptist Convention, like who are they and what's a little bit of their history, and then even our personal battle we had with it. So go ahead, hit that video.
Look at the pictures they took. Study the history they made. Try to find something good in the story of our birth.
Many people saw the Southern Baptist Convention as being a predominantly white organization that just broke out from the other Baptists because they didn't really want to give up their slaves. And yet these slaves were a part of the household, were a part of the churches. They were there because the slave master didn't leave their slaves at home on the plantation. They took them to church with them. Even though they were slaves and maybe shackled along the wall or sitting, in a secluded place.
So what are we going to do with that? Are we going to pretend that that's not the truth? Or are we going to kind of spin the historical facts? And I think we need to be very candid about where our forefathers in the faith failed and failed horrifically. And we need to figure out how we can move forward together in repentance and in humility and actually see how God could take that pain and redeem it and use it for his glory.
Our history as a part of the Southern Baptist Convention is a history of firsts. Whether they came early or whether they came late, God has used them all to make us who we are.
I was approached years ago by our church when we became an autonomous church, and some of our older members wanted to get out of the convention because of how the convention started. One of the things I mentioned to him was, folk, all of us have a past. Every last one. I looked at every one of them in the room in the eye. Every last one of us in here have a past. There's nothing in the world we can do about our past. A lot of things we did we regret. A lot of things we did we're ashamed of. Can't do anything to change it. However, because of that start, one day this convention would have the distinction of being able to testify. Look what God has done in this convention.
Next slide. Now, you see the brainwashing that the Southern Baptist Convention has done. That's why I want to show you that. The Southern Baptist Convention has become a national rather than a regional organization. It has long been far the largest American Protestant body and has been one of the most rapidly growing. Its membership now includes a substantial fraction of racial and ethnic minorities. In 2012, Fred Luther Jr. became the denomination's first African-American president. Also that year, the SBC agreed to allow some congregations whose members wish to avoid the negative association of the denomination's racist past to use the alternative name, Great Commission Baptist. See, they tried to change the name. The denomination's official title remained Southern Baptist Convention. However, they didn't let the niggas do it. The use of the alternate moniker continued to grow in popularity in the first quarter of the 21st century as a way for member churches to both distance themselves from the continuous regional association and to simultaneously focus on Jesus. The Great Commission, here's their commission, here's their mission, to his followers to spread the gospel message. Next slide. Now, basically, you got the Southern Baptist Convention is doing exactly what the Negro Project did. Done. It got black preachers to go through the South, spread the word. Make sure you throw in sterilization and abortions. All right. From its beginning, the Southern Baptist Convention was a more centralized denominational organization that had been usual among the Baptists, so it's regular. It developed its own missions, publications, and educational and other boards that function under the direction of the convention. The centralized organization of the Southern Baptists has been credited with aiding the amazing growth of the convention following a period of recovery after the devastation of the American Civil War. See, that American Civil War keep coming up. That's when the Bible Belt first started getting created. They fell apart, and then they came right back. Wonder how. If you use something like the Bible Belt as a weapon to build yourself back up, because remember, we talked about religious organizations that they was using. They just built it right back up off of what? The backs of blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians. Right. There you go, every time. All right. So I'm gonna take. Look, let me get the next. No, let me go to the bottom slide. There are state conventions, and a general convention is held annually. In the first decades of the 21st century, the Southern Baptist Convention reported more than 14 million members and 47,000 congregations. Those are churches. Headquarters in Nashville, Tennessee. It wouldn't be right if we didn't expose these bastards for who they are. That's right. Next slide. Now, here's the good part about these dudes. I said bastards for a reason. These dudes are sick. They sick. Now, they talk about Christianity, all that, what they want to do. They got black people as spokesmen for them. They allow a couple of niggas in there. Now, this is how they get down. This is what's really going on behind closed doors. Sexual abuse, the Southern Baptist Convention. Last year, pastors belonging to the Southern Baptist Convention, which has nearly 14 million members and is the largest Protestant denomination in the United States, decided that the problem of sexual abuse within its ranks had to be addressed. Following investigative reporting in the Houston Chronicle and the San Antonio Express News, which identified more than 700 victims during the past 2 decades. The SBC contracted a third-party firm to investigate an alleged misconduct. This month, the final report was released. It found widespread sexual abuse across the SBC, including an internal list of 703 alleged perpetrators, I can't say the word, perpetrators, there it is, and a leadership more interested in shaming survivors. Look at that. And a leadership more interested in shaming survivors and preventing legal liability than stopping the abuse. In other words, you're going to tell the ones that's the victims, you need to just shut up. Well, that's not happening to you. Well, you shouldn't worry about that. What you want to do, give us a bad name? That's what the SBC is represent. That's what they are. Where I leave off at? The whole thing should be seen for what it is. One high-ranking SBC official referring to victims' allegations wrote in an email uncovered in the report. It is a satanic scheme. Listen, this is what they said. It is a satanic scheme to completely distract us from evangelism. On Tuesday, the SBC said that it would release a list of accused pastors and others affiliated with the church.
That's right.
They ain't do that, brother. They did not release that. Look what it said before. It is a satanic scheme to completely distract us from evangelism. On Tuesday, the SBC said that it would release a list of accused pastors. They're not going to do that. They just said it's a satanic scheme. Next slide. Next slide. I'm looking on time. How what? 626. So the Catholic, now this is a tripped out part I discovered about the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church, which faces its own abuse crisis, is incredibly centralized, and you see SBC leaders saying throughout this report, essentially that because the SBC isn't structured, there's really no way for them to act. Can you talk a little bit? This is a question. Can you talk a little bit about the structure and how it both provides an excuse and did not allow for leaders to act? In other words, why is it that the SBC did not release those reports? They're not exposing the people that's doing these things. Next slide. Just like the Catholic Church, that's why I put that picture up. That wasn't the original picture. I stuck that in there. It's just like that. That's the way I was thinking. The SBC is the largest Protestant denomination in the country, and there are currently around 47,000 churches affiliated with it. The SBC has a statement of faith that it believes is called the Baptist Faith and Message. So if a church wants to affiliate, it's the system on how they get members and how they deal with them. If a church wants to affiliate, it's expected to agree with that. And the statement would have the SBC's beliefs of theology and God, as well as things like the senior pastor, which is a role reserved for men. And then the church has to give to the SBC through what it calls the cooperative program. A certain percent of the church's offerings gets paid to the cooperative program, which funds the executive committee, the body that was being investigated. It does day-to-day work for the SBC outside of its annual meeting. So you want to come play with us, you got to pay to play.
Right.
So they in their pockets, right? So if you in their pockets, then, and you have to believe what it's so like, if they're in your pockets and you have to believe what they believe, then that means you have to conform with whatever anything they want. So you don't have a voice. So, and then the church has, so like at the bottom here, if you do those two things, that's enough to make you a Southern Baptist. You don't have to call your church Southern Baptist. You don't have to have a certain training. That's it. And that's what allows you to send what it calls messengers or delegates to the annual meeting here in Nashville, to the convention where decisions are made. This is where they make their own little laws. That wasn't no little fluke where the COVID came and you can't come to church, but you need to send your tithes through the internet. I guarantee you they came up with those things. That's not nobody just like churches just on the same accord. No, they go by orders. That's all you need to be able to participate. That differs from other denominations that have a top-down structure, not just in the Catholic Church, but also in other Protestant denominations that might have a regional or national body that oversees you and maybe deals with discipline issues. The Southern Baptists don't have any of that. And so now here's the key. Here's how they slide. See, in the Catholic Church, they're responsible for those priests touching their children. All right? So they have to come up with schemes on how to, that's why they take, when they get caught, they send them to other Catholic, what do you call them, cathedrals, whatever? And they send them to other churches. Now, this is how the SBC slides. The Southern Baptists don't have any of that. And so the SBC's excuse when it comes to abuse has been that because all these churches operate independently, they don't ordain their own pastors. We don't tell their pastors what to do. They select their own leadership. They name their own churches. It doesn't have any authority to tell the church what to do on abuse. That's how the SBC is not liable. That's when at the end of that, it made it sound like they're going to reveal that list. No, they got nothing to do with that, bro.
So basically, the SBC says that we're not affiliated with any other churches.
They're right. The SBC said we are not affiliated with any fake church. You know what I'm saying? But that's how they slide. They already thought of that. You remember over here, like when I first read this article, right? The thing that caught me is when it said, like you paying all this stuff, and it said, you don't have to call your church Southern Baptist. You know, that's not enough to make you a Southern Baptist. You don't have to call yourself Southern Baptist. You don't have to have a certain training. That's like the mafia, bro. Or like what they call the plug in the street. Here, I got what you need now. You get caught. They ain't got nothing to do with that. You better not snitch on me neither. That's them. So if you're performing same-sex marriages within a church, or if you have gay pastors, which would be two things that violates its beliefs, the SBC would say that you can't call yourself Southern Baptist or participate in Southern Baptist life anymore, but they'll take your bread. You just won't be able to go to the meetings.
Right. It's just me. So it's basically like the Southern Baptist Convention is like they the plug.
Exactly. That's exactly what they are. They don't want to be affiliated with anything. And if you do something that's outside of what everybody's expecting the Southern Baptist Church to do, they're like, hey, you're not supposed to do that, but you can still be paying your funds. You just can't be coming to the meetings making us look bad. So now it has added abuse explicitly as a category in a committee to review churches that are suspected of being in violation. So now they have a committee formed, but they still not about to expose anybody that was in cahoots with that sexual abuse. Next slide. Oh man, I had to say this one. The Southern Baptist Convention sex abuse report, 44 women made allegations against Jacksonville preacher, pastor. That's one pastor. Top Southern Baptist plan to release secret list of pastors, church-affiliated personnel accused of sexual abuse. Top administrative leaders for the Southern Baptist Convention, the largest Protestant denomination in America, said Tuesday that they will release a secret list of hundreds of pastors and other church-affiliated personnel accused of sexual abuse. An attorney for the SBC's executive committee announced the decision during a virtual meeting called in response to a scathing investigative report detailing how the committee mishandled allegations of sex abuse and stonewalled numerous survivors. So you got a lot of people putting fire up under these people. It's happening too much. The committee anticipates releasing the list Thursday. During the meeting, top leaders and several committee members vowed to work, I don't know what to say, toward changing the culture of the denomination and to the list more intensively. Survivors' voices and stories. So again, I just wanted to show you that this one preacher did he committed sexual abuse with 44 women, man. That's the ones they caught. That's the one that came out. 3 minutes cut. Next slide. Next slide. Oh boy. This is what I wanted to show you. Downtown Nashville, SBC, what is critical race theory? The champ is here. Now, but I want you to look at this nigga face. He look like they're about to get this smoke. So look, this right here, not very long. We got one part now. This beginning part, this one's hidden. All right. Y'all pay attention to how it went down. I know y'all in Nashville, y'all done seen it, you gonna see it again. But this right here is good. Y'all just gonna sit back, y'all watch this.
We out here trying to figure out is what's going on in there. What are they saying? Critical race theory. Because we had some white people out here said that they're not gonna allow y'all to
Real quick, Scott. Just so I can set it up. All right, the brothers out here in the camp. Now we're in the middle, like the Southern Baptist Convention. It's right here. Those people are walking in and out of there. We're talking about preachers. These are representatives, remember delegates. They all walking in and out this building all day. I mean, crowds of them. It's preachers in groups. So then these couple of brothers having to come out. We talking to them, and they just all about standing up for the Southern Baptist Convention, and like they good and they do the right thing. They might be hurt, you might have heard some wrong things, but they still doing the right thing. These brothers have no idea what we just heard. They leaders just say about them. Go ahead.
There are white people on camera who say they're not gonna allow black people that's in there. We got it on camera. Yeah, and that's why we gotta get the CNN. We got the footage. We listen to you because you sound like you checking everything out. But we have white people that's in there with y'all, the same badges, saying that we will not allow black people to speak about it. Now I know some niggas who gonna ride the coattail of the white man, and guess what? You ride the white. Go ahead, come on.
They do give them a voice. We don't give them a voice because they're black. We give them a voice because they handle the word of God correctly.
Can I repeat what you just said? Amen. Can I repeat what you just said?
If you handle the word of God wrong, we don't give you a voice. You don't have a voice.
Listen, did you hear that? Did you hear that, America? We give you a voice.
No,
right. We give you a voice. Right. Listen to this man confess up here today. We give you a voice, not God. Not God give you a voice. We give you a voice. And if you speak against what we say, you don't have a voice. That's what he just said right here. Let's have a dialogue about race. So what do you want to talk about? Well, let's talk about race. Why does the Southern Baptist get, first of all, let's go way back. Let's press rewind. Let's go back to the next one. I ain't even go back to slavery. We were lynching black people in the 60s in the South. And when it comes, be honest now. Now the Bible says don't be a liar. It's wrong to bear false witness. What religion were lynching black people in the 60s? What religion? Okay. Okay, so now we gotta talk semantics. I'm asking you a question. Okay, okay, go ahead. What religion? What race? What race and what religion?
The ones who follow the devil.
The ones who follow the devil. You see how they are? I'm asking you a race. What people were lynching? Okay, I got it. You don't know what people were lynching black people in the 60s? You don't know? You don't know what people were lynching black? How old are you? You in college? You went to high school? You understand American history, right? You understand what happened in the 60s, right? Are you familiar with crossing being? Hold on. I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to help you out. You want to have a dialogue. In order to have a dialogue, you got to be honest. You got to be honest. Let's be honest. Go ahead.
So you put your point out.
Okay, so tell me your point. Tell me who were the people that were lynching black people in the city?
Y'all notice he would not answer that question.
Hold on. That's one part. Under what religion? What religion? Why is it so hard to say what religion was lynching black people?
You can't get me to say it's a religion if it's somebody that's obviously opposed to what the scripture says.
Opposed to what the scripture says. We understand they were opposed to what the scripture said, but we actually talking about institutions right now.
You're talking about institutions.
And we do know. Hold on, we do know that the Southern Baptist is an institution. Right. The Southern Baptist Church. It's a religious institution, right? But if you like,
the thing is, a lot of y'all y'all don't agree with yourself.
No, we with ourselves. We're not affiliated with the women like this. That's right. You see what I'm saying? That's the problem. Right. You see how the mirror turned? You see how the mirror there? That's the problem, white people. You can't look in the mirror. You want to hate the mirror for doing its own job.
That's right.
I'm asking you a simple question. You a 21-year-old red-blooded American down here in Nashville. I'm sure you well educated. You got Google. You got Wikipedia. You got all these access to all this information. What people and religion was lynching black people in the 60s? Tell me.
I believe that white supremacy.
Under what religion?
Yeah.
Give me a scripture I want where it says there is no truth in him. That he's the father of lies. You know what I'm saying? Let me tell you something. The Bible says all you gotta do is try the spirit by the spirit. By that fruit you gonna know this. By that fruit you gonna know this. They can't stand to confess. You know, the best part, I thought the Bible said you're supposed to confess.
That right there, that was history right there.
That's right.
They ain't never, the SBCA, give my hand. Get that light too. SBC had never seen niggas come out on a damn sidewalk talking to them like that. But more knowledge than them. But that was very important because it exposed them for who they are. It was like about a minute and something, man. And in seconds, that white man said, you don't have a voice. And that was the whole point. So, hey, that's the end of the lecture. I know y'all held there. Give yourselves a hand, man. Y'all held in there for me. I know you was tired. It's been hot outside. I want to give it up to, who I had some of these, St. Louis, Captain the Goggle Bar. Give him a hand. We got him from St. Louis, Chattanooga, Austin McCall. We got Alabama, Lahagard, and Pecan, they in here. What else we got? Of course, Nashville in here. We got Memphis, Cap came down, Cap Sophomore. I can't say enough about the sisters, man, and all the interworking parts. Y'all know who y'all are. Hey, I appreciate y'all, man. Ottawa can stop through. Also, Thal Rock came in. He came show some support. Give it up for my little mama back there. She mean as hell, but she back there. Yeah, you. Hey, man, I appreciate y'all, man. Thanks, love.
Bless y'all.
You want me in this? Salaki, in this? In the string yard? Okay.
Yeah.